Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event.
What's up, everyone? Sorry that we are starting this a few minutes late, 6 minutes to be exact. I was just coming off of another presentation, and then I had to make 2 bullet point updates on this one before we press go. So I do apologize about that. But we'll still finish on time. So we've got about 54 minutes to go. If you have questions, feel free to drop them as we go. I think I get them as comments here. So we've got some comments coming in already, which is great. And I'm happy to answer your questions as I go. Today, we're going to be talking about attracting and selling your ideal clients. And we're going to be covering identifying your ideal clients, attracting your ideal clients, becoming a rainmaker, and then selling your ideal clients. So in terms of identifying your ideal clients, now, I think a lot of accountants think my ideal client is somebody that can pay me $1,000 to do a tax return. And that's just frankly not good enough. If you want to build a robust marketing strategy, and when I say marketing strategy, I don't mean like a corporate 500 marketing strategy that is extremely detailed and has all these processes and a massive team. But I'm just talking about like, who am I supposed to be talking to when I create content? Understanding who you're targeting is critical, and it goes way beyond affordability. Can they afford to pay my fee? Some of you might think niche, and that's a place to start. So my niche is real estate investors. So I know at least directionally, I'm going to create content and talk to real estate investors. But even within that subset of all of the potential people that could pay me money to do CPA services, I still want to take it a little bit further and identify who specifically am I targeting in that group. So here's how we do it. So we build client personas, and my suggestion to you is to start by building 2 to 3 client personas. A persona is a fictional representation of your ideal client. We will even give our client personas names. So it'll be like Joe, $200,000 earner Joe, named Joe. And that helps you visualize them as you are creating content. It's actually a really helpful exercise to go through. So we want to build 2 to 3 client personas. And these personas help you understand your clients and enables you to tailor your services to them to help them solve their problems. And you can have positive personas and negative personas. So a positive persona is, this is who I want to attract, right? I want to attract Joe, who has $200K of income, who lives in Kansas City, who loves Porsches or whatever, right? Like if that's your persona, that's who you want to attract. But you can also have negative personas, and that's who you want to detract, push away from your firm, right? In the negative personas could be personality based, it could be income based, it could be net worth based. There's a lot of things that go into these personas, which I'll talk about here down below. But the point that I want to make is that I want all of you, if you're listening to this and you're interested in how do I attract better clients, my ideal clients, first you have to define who is your ideal client. And to do that, you build client personas. You literally build a fictional person with all of their character traits and all of their demographic information. But you can also build the personas of people you do not want. And when you can build these personas, it really enables your marketing and sales team to attract the right people and sell the right people, right? Like sometimes people ask me, how can you have a sales team that are not made up of CPAs and EAs? How do you have a sales rep that does not have a background in accounting and tax? Well, part of that answer is building client personas. I can hand them the idea of who we want and the idea of who we do not want, and I can train them on that. And then they can identify that during the sales process and weed out the people that we do not want to work with us at the firm. In terms of building the personas, what you need to do is you need to identify at least, you can do a whole bunch of stuff, but at the very bare minimum, my suggestion is that you identify the following things. First is demographics. So we want to know their income. We want to know their net worth. We want to know their age. We want to know their gender. We want to know their location. Do they have a family? Do they not have a family? Are they divorced? Or are they not divorced, right? So we want to know the demographic information, again, of our ideal persona. So I've got Joe. I want him to be making 200K, have a net worth of $1 million, be 45 years old. He's male. I can also have Sally, who has the same thing, and she's female. But maybe men are better buyers of your services than women, or maybe women are better buyers of your services than men. It's important to understand all the demographic information. Then we want to talk about the identifiers. So what is their demeanor? What are their communication preferences? What brands do they like, right? So are we talking about Joe who likes Kias, or are we talking about Joe who likes Lexuses and Porsches and things like that? And the reason you identify the brands too, and I'm talking specifically about cars because that's just what my mind goes to personally. I love cars. But you could do this with any type of brand, because when you can identify the brands, you can start to identify marketing opportunities that other firms have not identified. Let's assume that our ideal client loves BMWs. For whatever reason, we've figured it out. They all have BMWs for some reason. So if we know that our ideal client loves BMWs, then we could be the one weird CPA firm that does what? Well, we go and we advertise alongside BMW, right? So we find opportunities with BMW to advertise. Now, obviously that's a very far-fetched idea, but the point is that what CPA firm marketing teams are looking at car brands to advertise alongside of? They're not. But you could do that. That's the secret sauce to this exercise, is when you can identify exactly who you're targeting and what their interests are, you can also identify unique opportunities to market to them. That's what we're trying to get at here. We want to identify their goals and motivations. So what gets them up in the morning? What are they excited about? What are they trying to achieve in life? What are their monetary goals? What are their work-life balance goals? Like, what is it? What is it that gets them going? And what are the challenges preventing them from achieving those goals? So we want to know what's driving them and what's preventing them from getting there. And that leads us to, how can you help them achieve their goals? How can you help them either achieve their goals or overcome their challenges? But the whole premise is we are providing services to help them accomplish something in their life. Now, we provide a lot of peace of mind services. So how we help might simply just be, we're going to do your back office and you don't have to worry about it anymore. And now you can spend all of your time trying to accomplish your goals, right? So that's an important thing to process through. And then the last piece of this last piece of client personas is go ahead and identify the objections that they're going to have to working with you. Why would they not buy your services? If you can identify those objections up front, and you can start kind of game planning through them, you will be able to hand whoever's doing your marketing, whoever's doing your sales, a more powerful more powerful context, so that they can go ahead and proactively handle those objections. Like if you know that Joe, who makes $200,000, his number one objection is going to be the price of your services, then you can start planning around that, right? You can build content around that. You can build sales scripts around that. But it's important to identify upfront, what are the objections that your ideal client persona is going to have in working with you, and then how do you handle those objections? So next we go to marketing to your ideal client. My content, or my approach to marketing, has been primarily 95%, 100% content. We've tried some ads, and we'll be probably doing more with ads at some later point, but primarily content, right? So we want to produce content in such a way that drives awareness, drives interest, and drives action. So there's 3 parts to the content funnel. You can look, if you go on Google and you're like, what are the content funnel? What's the sales funnel? All sorts of different funnels out there. When I think about content specifically, I think about awareness, interest, and action. And I want to create content for awareness, for interest, and for action. So there's kind of like 3 different pieces of the puzzle that you want to create content specifically for. So awareness type content is going to be higher level content. It's meant to educate. You focus on driving engagement and reach, right? So you want your education content to effectively go viral. You add controversy to do that, because when you add controversy, you get a lot more engagement. But you want to the purpose of awareness type content is to educate, and you're doing it in a way that caters to people's short attention span. So you'll see a lot of short form content. It creates open feedback loops in people's mind, right? It's like, hey, did you know that you could qualify as a real estate professional? And if you do qualify as a real estate professional, you can write off X dollars of tax losses against your W-2 income, but there is a catch. Follow for more. All of a sudden, but there is a catch creates an open feedback loop, and a lot of people just can't help but to follow for more, because they have to get the next piece of content to close the open feedback loop that you've just created in their mind. That's what awareness content is trying to do. It's not trying to fully educate top to bottom. And this is what a lot of accountants' content fails at. So a lot of accountants try to be the technical experts. They try to prove technical competence, right? And so they end up producing a lot of long form content, and they don't cater to people's short attention span. They don't understand how people actually process through learning. But if you think about how you learn, it all starts with some idea, right? It's like it's something interesting. For me, it was, I love lattes, and I love coffee. I love espresso. I love lattes. Could I make my own latte? Or I saw something at one point. Somebody was like making their own latte, and I was like, oh, how could I make my own latte? And that led me down this entire rabbit hole. But it was just a very simple open feedback loop of something I've already got. I'm already interested in. I see a piece of content on it that was really short, and it was about, you can make your own latte. And then it's okay, I can make my own latte. How do I do that? And then I started going down the content funnel. My awareness moved to interest, and then it moved to action, because I bought an espresso machine that I can also froth milk on and make lattes. But we start with the awareness. It's just a very simple piece of content that, for the people that are interested or unaware, you get it in front of them, and they become aware of something, and then you feed them interest-based content. That's the more technical content that helps them understand there's more to this, right? So where CPAs and accountants fail at content marketing is just by going all in on the interest piece and neglecting the awareness. Think about it like this. If you were to write like a 2,000 word blog post, right? Make it all technical. That's your interest piece. But there are pieces in that blog post that could likely be very short form awareness type content that you can make into a short video, that you can make into a short Twitter or X post or LinkedIn post. That's what you need to be thinking about. It's like, how do I pare this down and rewrite it or reproduce it in a way, this now reduced piece of my content? How do I reproduce that in a way that creates an open feedback loop for somebody that doesn't even know this topic? How do I create some form of interest from them, some sort of awareness that they were previously unaware of? So that's what you'll see a lot of, like TikTok and Instagram, YouTube Shorts, X, LinkedIn, and even ads. You can do this with ads as well, like Facebook ads. And you'll see the hook of, hey, if you're a W-2 earner making more than X, did you know something? Did you know that you could do this? Or did you know that you couldn't do this? And now all of a sudden that's awareness, right? Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Now I am aware of that. And now I want more. And now you move down to interest. So when you move them from awareness to interest, you're really pulling them into your ecosystem. So I think of awareness as like you're blasting it out into the social sphere. And the more engagement that you get, the more people are going to see it that were not previously in your ecosystem. But now they're interested, and now you want to pull them into your ecosystem. And that's where the longer form content is going to come into play. That's where you're demonstrating technical expertise. Long form content can be blogs, videos, podcasts, newsletters, but it gives you a little bit more room to show that you know what you're talking about, and also close that feedback loop that you created, that open feedback loop that you created in their minds about whatever the thing is. So did you know that if you are a real estate professional, you can deduct the tax losses from your rental real estate against your regular income, but there's a catch. Okay, awareness. Now, interest is, the catch is, here's my blog article saying, here's how you qualify as a real estate pro. You can't have a full-time job, or you have to have a spouse that stays at home or works part-time, and they can qualify as a real estate pro. You also have to materially participate. But, I got them interested in, hey, you can take this large tax deduction, but there's a catch. And now they're spending more time with me on my interest piece. They're invested, though, at that point. They want to learn more because I've created this open feedback loop that they have to close. So now you move them down to your interest piece, and that interest is blogs, it's longer form videos, Long form videos, think like 2 to 5 minutes, maybe up to 10 minutes, but it doesn't have to be longer than that. Podcasts, newsletters, weekly newsletters. That's where you really drive home that education for them. And then the last piece of this content funnel is the action piece. So it's important. And frankly, I'm not like this great at this piece. I'm trying to get a lot better, but it's content that specifically gets them to take action. So you've been in my content funnel. You see you've got the awareness, you've got the interest piece, right? I'm proving the technical competence. I'm educating you. I'm closing feedback loops. I'm probably opening new feedback loops. But at some point, I'm going to say, look, you need to buy my services, right? And that's what the action piece is. So it gets them to make a decision on whether to do something or not do something related to working with you. It could be a webinar. It could be booking a call. It could be even joining a newsletter. That is all. You can also create action content around, you need to join this newsletter if you want to continue being successful. But to create good action content, you speak to their pain, and then you tell them why they should take that action and what happens if they don't take that action. That's typically good action content. Now, if you get into content marketing, and content marketing is like a big, huge ecosystem, right? I mean, you see all the influencers, and I do this too. So it's, you look at the influencers out there, both in and outside of the accounting space, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can never like create that much content. They create so much content. And to be clear, most of those people, that's their full-time job, is to create content. If you follow me at all, you'll see that I'll go on sprints where I create a lot of content and then I kind of go dark for a while. Well, when I go dark for a while, it's because I'm like really diving back into managing my firm and doing something in my firm. So to show up every single day and create significant, like a high quantity, but also a high quality content machine, that is a full-time job. That takes a lot of work. So how do you do it? You have to figure out how to create time for it, right? In small pieces. You can start with one social media platform or one channel, blog, podcast, video, newsletter. Doesn't necessarily have to be social media, but just start with one channel, one social media platform, and just try to get good at that one channel or that one social media platform. Don't try to accomplish all of it at once because it's too hard to do. The people that are doing that are either just repeating themselves on all platforms. And what happens is, like I would write on X, right? Write a really great post that goes viral on X, and then I just repost it to LinkedIn and it doesn't go viral. And then I repost it to Instagram and it doesn't go viral. It gets very little engagement. Why? Because each of the platforms have their own language. They have their own kind of like culture, if you will. So you have to tailor your content to all of the different platforms. You have to repurpose it, but repurpose it means reproducing it at the same time. You have to change the hooks. You have to change the flow. You have to change the cadence. You have to change the tone in order for it to be successful on those platforms, and that takes a lot of work. So my suggestion is, don't worry about reposting it to a bunch of different platforms. Just pick one platform to start with, one channel to start with. Master that first, and you can spend an hour a day on that and do a really good job, 30 minutes a day even on that, and do a really good job. And then you can decide if you want to expand and do more and more and more, but you also have to pare back your own work at that point as well. So you have to know that if I invest more time in this, I'm going to get more ROI. But if you do that over time, you will slowly become the rainmaker at your firm, or a rainmaker if your firm has multiple rainmakers. Or if you are the firm owner, you will really make it so that nobody else in your firm has to be a rainmaker, which is also valuable, right? That's valuable because it enables you to hire people that are really great at managing the relationships, managing the process, managing the platforms, delivering to clients. And you don't have to worry about this extra piece that a lot of accountants struggle with, which is business development. How do you bring in $2 million a year in new business? That's hard to do, right? But if you can be the rainmaker, and if the rainmaking can be primarily from your content, now you have something that's evergreen, that produces leads for you on a consistent basis. So it's important that somebody in your firm be the rainmaker. And my argument is, if you can do it through content, you can really solve a lot of problems, especially at scale, in terms of who has to be a rainmaker. But even if you're working for another firm, being a rainmaker is great, right? And you can be a rainmaker with content. And I don't think that you need permission to go and do this. It's just a matter of, I want to go build a personal brand. And I work for a firm right now, and my personal brand is going to be valuable to the firm because I'm going to be able to generate business for the firm. Firms always have a need for rainmakers. Now, you might threaten some of the partners, like if you're if you're working for a really old school firm and they don't like that, you're stepping on toes effectively because you start bringing in more business than somebody else. Well, then you might need to go find another firm. But I promise you, somebody will want you at the firm, because firms always want rainmakers. They always want people who can consistently bring in business. And the reason for that is you can always build businesses around people that can bring in business. Think about it. You can, if you were an engineer, let's switch industries. Let's say that you're an engineer. All right. You're highly technical. You're very gifted at being an engineer. You know all the complicated math formulas, whatever those are. I didn't make it very far in math. I think I got to like AP Calc, and then I said that's enough math for me. But let's just say you're really good at it. You're so technically gifted at being an engineer. Being that good at an engineer does not mean that you can build a great business around yourself, right? Because you have to also be really great at selling clients on why they should use your engineering services, and that is a completely different skill set. Sales and marketing is a completely different skill set. So if you have a great engineer, it's hard to build a business around a great engineer because there's no clients to work with, right? But if you have a great salesperson that can bring in clients for an engineer, you can always build a great business around rainmakers, around people that can bring in the business. I can always hire those great engineers to serve the clients brought in by this rainmaker, but it's not always true in reverse. So just to be clear, being a rainmaker can be very valuable for your career. And if you're a firm owner, it can be very valuable for your firm. I think we all know this, obviously, but I had to point that out. And I also think that even today, content is still a blue ocean. There's a lot of firms that are trying to do content, but they're not doing it very well. And so that's why I say it's a blue ocean. Very few accounts are doing this effectively, meaning that you can absolutely jump on board right now and hit this stuff hard. I also want to talk a little bit about, because sometimes we get into like rainmaking conversations, even at our firm, and I talk with other people in the industry about it as well. And the question is, do you build your own firm versus work with a firm? And I think that if you are a great rainmaker, you can build your own firm, and you could probably build it to $1 million, $2 million in revenue. But at some point, you will hit a ceiling. And the reason that you will hit a ceiling if you cannot learn how to delegate and how to hold people accountable. And if you cannot learn how to be an effective leader, you will hit a ceiling, and you'll probably hit that ceiling around $2, $3, $4, $5 million in revenue. And at that point, if you can't figure out how to delegate, how to hold people accountable, and how to be an effective leader, then being a rainmaker doesn't matter anymore, because the next 50 clients that you're able to bring in, it doesn't matter. You can't scale a team to service those clients effectively. So at some point, you have to make a decision. If you're a rainmaker, at some point you have to make a decision. Do I try to dial back my rainmaking and beef up my leadership skills so that I can build a more robust firm, get through these growth ceilings, and then go back to my rainmaking? Or should I partner with somebody that already has all of that? And I think that that's an interesting conversation that you have to answer. You have to think about and answer personally. And I think that the only way to do that is really assess your strengths and weaknesses, assess compensation plans. What does the comp look like either way? But I think that, like in my experience, people that are really great at the content and the rainmaking are typically better paired with people that are really great at running a firm, at leading the people in the firm, at delivering on the services, the fulfillment piece. Because the person, if they're really great at rainmaking, if they could instead just double down on their strengths, they can bring even more business and probably grow their income even faster than if they tried to toil through it themselves. Because learning those leadership skills takes a lot of time, effort, and pain. Not to say that you can't do it, but you just have to assess that. Is that something that I want to do? And I think a lot of us say, I do want to do that, until you're in the trenches and you're going, this is extremely lonely, and these are really hard decisions, and this really kind of sucks. That's when people, I think, start to look to sell. They start to look to bring on partners that can help them. But anyway, I think everybody kind of goes through this. But the point being though, is that even if you're a rainmaker at a firm today, don't necessarily like poo-poo the firm itself. Like if you're crushing it, bringing in business, don't necessarily lock into this idea of I'm going to go launch my own firm, because the second that you do that, you basically have just shifted time away from this thing that you're really good at, which is the rainmaking. And you've now shifted time into firm management, people management, leadership, and you have to go and develop all of those systems, the processes, the skills, the client retention, the client service, like dealing with angry clients. All that type of stuff comes with I'm going to go launch my own firm. And again, totally fine, right? If you want to do it, go do it. But what I'm also saying is there are opportunities with the right firms to rainmake for them and make a lot of money and grow your career the way that you want to grow it. So the point is that I think if you get good at content, ultimately you have a lot of options, and there's going to be a lot of firms that want you. And I think that you can you have unlimited compensation potential. All right, let's talk about 2025 content opportunities. So AI is shifting how people search and create content. So we have now at our firm at Hall CPA gotten a lot more AI related searches in our Google Analytics dashboard. So we can see like organic SEO searches, but now we're also seeing a lot of like Grok and ChatGPT and Claude, I think, as well. Like we can see those hits come in on our website now. And that has been a new thing this year. So AI is shifting how people search for answers and also consume content. We're actually, you start to see like a little bit of a drop off in the SEO traffic, because people, if you go on Google yourself and you search something, you now see the answer right there with like links. But sometimes you don't click on the link, right? Maybe 50% of the time you're clicking on the link. So the SEO traffic is going to be reduced a little bit. I actually think that's a good thing, because there's a lot of businesses that created content specifically for SEO, not to actually help the person searching. So I think that you'll see a lot of businesses try to shift gears a little bit and create higher quality content rather than just keyword stuffing their content. And that creates opportunities for you as well in terms of, if you write in a more with a focus on quality, I think that you'll get a lot of those AI searches as well. So that's just something to think about too. But the other thing to think about here is everyone, it feels like, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people are using AI to create content, and then they're just like copy and pasting that content for the most part. Like if you go on LinkedIn and you see like long form posts that have a ton of emojis on the side, like it's like an emoji of like a smiley face and then it says something, that's AI content for the most part. So there's a lot of people that are just copy and pasting AI content just to create content. I think that will potentially work in the short run, but I think in the long run, what people are going to end up looking for and really appreciating is authentic content. And I think search engines are going to find ways, search engines and platforms are going to find ways to boost authentic content, because at the end of the day, people want to hear from people. Like Reddit, for example, is like way up in user volume and engagement. And I think that that's because that's like the one remaining place where people feel like they can go and have actual conversations with actual people. So I think that you'll see a lot more emphasis put on authenticity, which just means that if you just get ahead of that curve today, you can use AI to help you create content, but keep it as authentic as possible. Make it sound like it's written by a human, not some robot. I think that you'll find a lot of success. Some other ideas that I have are invest in video for 2025, write a newsletter frequently in 2025, post authentic long form content on X and LinkedIn, and then you can screenshot X content to Instagram. I know I talked about like repurposing and stuff, but for whatever reason, whenever we have screenshotted our X content that goes viral and reposted on Instagram, it also typically does pretty well on Instagram as well. But just a way to repurpose some content. So let's say that you've mastered the content piece, right? And you've got a lot of leads coming in, and now it's time to sell the prospects. How do you actually hold a sales call? What do you actually do? My approach is a consultative sales process. A consultative sales process effectively means like you become the prospective client, you become their coach, their therapist, however you need to frame it in your mind. But what do coaches and therapists do? They ask a lot of questions. Gurus online, I'm not going to name them, but I'm sure you know who they are. Gurus will tell you to sell around ROI, return on investment. I can get you X number of tax savings. Therefore, my fee is Y, and therefore your return on investment is 2,000% or something like that. Not saying that you can't close people in that manner. You absolutely can. However, I think that is a poor approach to selling clients, because at the end of the day, clients are buying peace of mind. They might justify their buying decision with an ROI, but at the end of the day, buying decisions are always emotional. Anytime that you buy something, it's emotional. It's an emotional buying decision. You could even apply it to grocery store purchases, one brand versus the other brand. Emotional buying decision. You can justify it with logic. It's cheaper, but it's at the end of the day, it's an emotional buying decision. And when people are buying from accountants, it's an emotional buying decision. And the emotion that they are trying to cover is peace of mind, anxiety. That's what they're trying to buy. All right. They're trying to buy a solution that solves that. So what's the ROI on peace of mind? It's different for everybody, right? You could have somebody that makes $100K a year and they're willing to pay you 5 times more because they're terrified of doing it wrong, versus somebody that makes $1 million a year and they don't really care about doing it wrong. And they just think that they'll throw money at the solution and they'll be fine. And they don't want to pay you more, right? So everybody values peace of mind differently. Now, the ROI approach, again, can it work? Yes, but that's only if you've already covered the emotional piece. And a lot of these gurus don't cover that. They just go straight to ROI. Well, send me your tax return. I've identified 3 things that you can do. Here's the savings. There's my fee, percentage increase, bam, done. Let's do it. You can actually absolutely sell clients on it. However, in my experience, my personal experience doing this, what you end up doing is creating sort of like a, I kind of call it like a death spiral, if you will. You can never, it is increasingly challenging to retain clients that you've sold on an ROI at the beginning. Think about it from a tax planning perspective. If you're good at tax planning, then the initial year of working with you is going to have extremely high ROI. But every additional year of working with you is not, right? The ROI is going to be a lot lower because you front load the value. You've done so much of the planning with them in the first 12 months. And you've gotten them all on the right path. And now it's just kind of like show up and do the same thing every single time over and over and over again. So what additional ROI is there? The problem though, and there's always additional ROI to be clear, but it comes from primarily peace of mind. The problem is if you sold them on an ROI at the beginning, then every year going forward, you have to sell them on a financial ROI every single year in the future. So if you sold them on a financial ROI at the beginning, you have to sell them on a financial ROI every year in the future. And that becomes much harder for you to do. And it could even lead to you doing bad things, such as providing ERC credits in a shady way, such as setting up sham charitable LLCs. I think I saw something on the IRS recently that's like charitable LLCs. Like it's gonna end up creating it's going to force you to take more aggressive tax positions, and you can apply the same logic to accounting as well. It's going to require you to take more aggressive tax positions to continue producing the same ROI. Otherwise, the client's going to stop buying from you if that was the primary sales point. So my advice to you is stop selling on ROI, sell peace of mind instead. And to do that, you have a consultative sales call. So how do you do this? First things first, you have to position yourself in your own mind as the prospect's coach or therapist. The job is to ask a ton of questions to figure out what is important to the prospect. Why are they here? Why are they having a call with you today? Why do they want to switch today and not 6 months from now, not 6 months earlier, right? That's your job. Your job is to figure out the emotional reasons as to why this person is trying to switch accountants today. So why are they looking to switch CPAs? That's my leading question. The very first thing that I ask, why are you looking to switch accountants? And then when they tell you why, you don't just say, okay, thanks. Let's move on to the next question. You say, why is that important to you, right? Why are you looking to switch to accountants? Well, my accountant takes 2 weeks to follow up with me. Now, most of you might go, oh yeah, easy. Well, I follow up in 48 hours. And most people that are new to sales would do exactly that. Why are you looking to switch CPAs? Well, my accountant takes 2 weeks to follow up with me, and I don't like that. I want somebody to follow up faster. And then we go, well, we have a 48-hour email follow-up policy. So that's solved. Easy, done. And then you move on to the next question. The problem is if you do that, you fail. What you need to do instead is, why are you switching CPAs? Oh, I'm switching CPAs because my accountant takes 2 weeks to follow up with me. Then you say, why is that important to you? Why does that matter? Because what we're trying to do is understand what's the emotional piece here, right? Simply saying, oh, well, we do it in 48 hours, you're making a lot of assumptions. And when you make a lot of assumptions, when you jump to conclusions, you can't frame your service effectively at the end. And so what you're then going to end up doing is something that I call feature vomiting, which I'll explain in a second. But what are you looking to switch CPAs for? Well, my accountant takes 2 weeks to follow up with me. Why is that important to you? Well, it's important to me because whenever I see something online or I have a question, it sticks on my mind for a while, and it just stresses me out. And I really want somebody that I feel like cares about me. And if it takes you 2 weeks to get back to me, I feel like you don't care about me, which stresses me out more. Okay, what are your expectations related to turnaround times? Like what would make you feel like you care or your accountant cares about you? Well, I'm not like high. I'm not high maintenance. I don't need a response the same day, but like same week would be nice. Okay, cool. Well, how would you feel about like our firm? We have a 48-hour email policy. Now we don't always get the answer to you in 48 hours, but we'll always tell you within 48 hours, I got your email, I'm working on it, and here's when you can expect a reply. Do you feel like that would solve that problem, or do you feel like there's something else there? And then most time they'll be like, yeah, that would solve it. But you're asking questions. You're really trying to understand why it's important to them, and you can do that with everything that they give you. That's a consultative sales process. I always ask these other two questions as well. Why are they looking to switch today instead of 6 months ago or 6 months from now? So why does it matter right now that you're trying to change accountants? What is the reason today? Why didn't you have this thought 6 months ago? And why do you need to do this now and not 6 months from now? What happens if you don't make this decision today and you wait another 6 months? What's going to happen to you then? What are the negative consequences for waiting? Exploring that with them is always a gold mine of information. And then what are one or two outcomes that if we were to deliver them for you would make investing X dollars in our services an absolute no-brainer? What are one or two outcomes? I like to use the exact words here. So sometimes when I train people at my firm on this, they'll say, what are one or two things that if we could do them for you, would make working with us good? It's like, no. Use the exact words. What are one or two outcomes that if we could deliver them to you would make investing X dollars in our services a no-brainer? That is a powerful question, and it is always eye-opening. And then the last thing on this, on how to have a consultative sales call, is don't feature vomit. Okay, so a lot of times we'll have with like new people in our sales process. They'll get on the phone with the client and they will ask a lot of questions. And typically like the first 10 minutes is a lot of good rapport building. It's a lot of good questions going back and forth. And then about like minute 12 to minute 15, they go, okay, well, let me tell you about how we work. We do all the things, right? We do tax preparation, we do bookkeeping, we do accounting, we build you sales, we build you CFO dashboards, and the CFO dashboards have all these 15 metrics. When we do tax planning, we have 3 calls, we do a tax delivery, we do unlimited email, we review your entity diagram, we talk to third parties, we tell just all the stuff, right? But the problem is that if we haven't done a good job understanding specifically in these different services what is important to the prospect, then all the prospect is hearing is, wow, these guys do a ton, or this team, these guys and gals do a ton of stuff. And because they do so much stuff, that's why the price is so high. So I'm not going to buy. No, thanks. So instead of feature vomiting, spend more time figuring out what does this person really need, what really interests them of all the things we do, what are going to solve their pain points. And then when you're framing and pitching your services to them, that's all you talk about. So the way that I would do it is I say, well, look, like you said that the turnaround time and then the lack of the email turnaround time, the call turnaround time, whenever you reach out with a question is a challenge. And then whenever you meet with your accountant once a year and you feel like you need somebody more proactive. So let me talk to you about how we service our clients and how we're proactive. We have this planning service, and the way that the planning service works is we actually front load the value for you. So all that proactivity that you've been missing over the past few years, you actually get that with us in the first 30 to 45 days. Because we're going to have a kickoff call, 2 strategy calls. We're going to deliver the blueprint for you. And then after that first 45 days, what we're going to do is hold you accountable to the things that are in that blueprint. because what's the point of you paying us money if you're not actually going to go do the things that we need you to do from a tax perspective? And we really dial it down for you as well. Like we could give you 100 different strategies. There are firms that do that. That's not us. We're going to listen to what are your needs, what are your goals, what's important to you, what are your blockers, how busy are you? And we're going to really narrow that down into like 3 to 5 things that you need to do, and then we're going to hold you accountable to that. And then there's a lot of other things that come with that as well. We've got you covered fully holistically, but that's the main thing that we do for you. So we've got a lot of other features, but all I said was, yeah, we do a lot of other things as well. You can review that whenever we send the proposal. But at the end of the day, you wanted the proactivity, you wanted the better client service. We deliver that for you. Here's how. And you just stay focused on that. You don't talk about, oh yeah, we do entity diagrams. They didn't mention entity diagrams being needed, right? Now we know that we need it, they need it, but they didn't say that. So important to not feature vomit, to really hold back. And this is probably the hardest skill to learn. I struggled with it myself. And everybody struggles with it. It's the hardest skill to learn, not feature vomiting. Instead, asking more questions, understanding what's important to them, and then framing your pitch of your services to specifically solve what's important to them and nothing else. Because then you can get them to sell themselves on your services. The last thing I have on the slide here is do not try to prove technical competence on a call. Don't do that. I know that's probably a weird thing to say. Like, whoa, well, they're calling me. I got to tell them I'm smart, right? Oh, you asked about real estate professional status. Well, here's what real estate professional status looks like. 750 hours, more time in real estate, material participation. Your spouse could qualify if you can't qualify. Here's all the section 469, C7. You like citing the code and all of it. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. A sales call is not where you try to prove technical competence. Here's why. People would not be on the phone with you if they didn't think that you had the technical competence to serve them, right? Would you go to a doctor that you didn't think could help you? Would you go and hire an attorney or talk to an attorney that you didn't think had the skills to help you? No. What do you do, right? If you're looking for legal services, you go and you search for potential law firms, or you try to get referrals from other people that use these law firms. And you try to assess, can these law firms help me and my need today? You do that before you ever fill out an inquiry, before you ever try to contact them. So that's like the very first step that people take in the buying decision of professional services. Think about it with a wealth planner. If you don't have an attorney, if you're like, this is going over my head, okay, wealth planner, plumber, HVAC technician, like you're not just going to go and call random people that you don't think can actually solve your problem. So your prospects are doing the same thing. They're getting on the phone with you because they think that you can solve their problem. They think that you have the technical skills already to solve their problem. So don't spend time trying to prove technical expertise. You don't need to do that. You have already done that. That's why they're on the call with you. So whenever they ask you a technical question, you don't give them the answer, because they're not looking, and this can sound weird, but they're not looking for you to give them the answer right then and there. What they're really looking for, whether they realize it or not, most of the time, almost all the time, sometimes they are just looking for free advice, and those people, you got to weed those people out. But most of the time, your real buyers, your ideal clients, when they ask you a technical question, they're really looking for, how do you process through? How are you going to help me solve this? And that's what you need to explain. That's what you need to get good at. Hey, I spent 500 hours. I bought a short-term rental. I spent 500 hours managing it. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, does that qualify for material participation? Can I do a cost seg, and can I take the tax losses to offset my W-2 income? Well, I really appreciate you asking me that question. We process through that with a lot of our clients. Here's how. The first 30 to 45 days, we do a kickoff call, 2 strategy calls with you. We're going to explore that specifically, because what we have to try to figure out is, of those 500 hours, how much is personal time and versus how much is actually material participation time. And so we'll figure that out with you on those calls, and then you'll have a blueprint that goes through that as well. That's how we're going to help you figure that out. I didn't say, oh yeah, the 500 hours, that's material. Yeah, you can do it. Sure. No, we're not having that conversation today. You're not paying me yet, right? But I will help you understand how I'm going to help you get to that answer. That's the key. All right. Last thing that I want to go over before questions. If you have any questions, I don't know how many people are live here, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If not, totally fine. So the last thing that I want to hit is, how do you handle common objections? So again, the mistakes people make are feature vomiting. Number one, I've already kind of gone over that. here's everything we're going to do for you. Well, the prospect doesn't care about everything we're going to do for them. They care about their one specific need, their two specific needs. You got to be able to frame the service to solve those very specific needs. Otherwise, you're going to lose the sale. When I'm reviewing sales calls for my sales reps where they lose sales, it's typically because they're feature vomiting. They kind of get stuck. They don't know what else to do. So they just start talking about the plan or the service. That's a mistake. That's a failure. You need to spend more time asking questions to uproot. Why is this person really here? I've also seen mistakes in terms of getting defensive. It's kind of an interesting one too, because we all have egos, and somebody will be like maybe a little bit harder to talk to, maybe not really trusting you, and you start getting defensive and say, well, why are you even here, man? Like, what's the deal? Try not to get defensive on sales calls. Try to really push your ego down. And the way to do this is to just ask more questions. Try to lead with curiosity, because at the end of the day, that's what you're doing. You're essentially being a coach. If you can do this effectively, people will like email you afterwards, even if they don't buy from you, and they'll say, "I've never had a sales call like that." That's amazing. Then we have justifying with logic as well. So that's a mistake that we make on sales calls, is we try to justify with logic, and typically that's like, well, here's the ROI. I think that's a mistake, because if you find yourself trying to justify with logic, you probably have not done a good enough job on the emotional side, on really asking more questions to understand, again, why is this person here today, right now? Why are they even looking to switch accountants? And why is that important to them to solve that problem? Typically, if you can do a good job there, you don't have to justify with logic. You don't have to do any justifying. They're just ready to buy because they've never had a conversation like this before. They feel like finally somebody understands them. They've been looking for you their entire life, and here you are. So heck yeah, I'm going to work with you. But sometimes you do have to justify with logic. Again, sometimes you do run into people who you get them locked in on the emotional side, but they have to justify the buying decision with logic. So sometimes you also have to justify with logic. But when you do that, be really, really, really careful following any of that guru advice of like, oh yeah, show them the ROI on the tax savings or whatever, because people have short-term memory. They will not remember the ROI a year from now, and you're going to have to resell them on the ROI again. And if you don't have a strong ROI on the back end, which if you're good at your job, you probably don't from that perspective. You've already done all this stuff up front. You've already optimized them. So a year from now, there's less ROI for every dollar that they spend with you. Well, that's a hard conversation to have with people, and you're going to lose sales as a result. You're going to lose client retention. And the name of this game, by the way, is client retention. I know a couple firms out there that just do a lot of the advisory work up front, and they struggle with the retention piece, and they have a high-paying job. That's a hard business to run because they don't have much client retention. You have to figure out the retention machine. And to figure out the retention machine, you got to stop selling the ROI up front. You can justify with it, and that's fine, but just be careful. It's a very thin line. And if you cross it, it's hard to come back from. In terms of objections, so often the two objections that we hear most often is price is too high, it's too expensive, and I'm not ready. So I want to spend some time walking through each one of these objections, and then we'll wrap up. The first objection here is price is too high, I'm not ready. So if they say, first you would say something along the lines of like, hey, sounds like we're a really good fit. The next step is for me to send a proposal. Would there be anything holding you back from signing that proposal once I send it? And they might go, well, the price is too high or it's too expensive. And by the way, when they say, well, I'm kind of looking I'm going to shop around some other CPA firms or some other accounting firms. I'm a CPA, so I keep saying CPA firms, but if you're an EA, I don't mean that in a bad way. Or if you're non-licensed, I also don't mean that in a bad way. But accounting firms in general. If they say, I've got a few other accounting firms I want to talk to, then what they're really telling you is there's still an objection there. And typically the objection is the price. So that's what I have found, at least. If you can find ways to, when they say, well, I've got some other accounting firms I want to shop around. If you can find ways to dig into that, like, well, what's the buying criteria and how did we stack up? You can start talking with them about that and maybe even move them a little bit closer to, so what's the real problem here? Is it just price? Like, what's the deal? Because if they heard everything they want to hear and the price makes sense, they're going to buy now. They're not going to wait. They're not going to have 5 more calls with 5 more accounts. Who wants to waste their time? When you find a match, you buy, right? Think about yourself. When you shop, when you find a match, you buy, you're done. I'm not going to waste any more time double checking. I don't need to get 3 quotes. So it's typically a pricing objection. Price is too high. So what I do is I ask, okay, so if they say the price is too high, it's too expensive, I will say, oh, is price the only thing that matters then in your buying decision? And of course, it's not the only thing that matters. But what I want them to do is I want them to say, no, price isn't the only thing that matters. Like proactivity matters. 48-hour email turnaround time matters. Quality matters. And then I'll say, okay, well, you said those things matter, but it seems like they're not that important to you. And then the prospect will say, well, yeah, they are. And then you get to say something along the lines of, well, you said that we're too expensive, and I just figured that meant that you'd rather go find somebody cheaper, even if it means that they can't do those things that you said are important to you. And then the prospect will start backpedaling. They'll start selling themselves on your service. They'll say, well, no, price is important, but these things are even more important. I guess, they'll just go down the line of the sales process and they'll start selling themselves on the service. But the key is to kind of call out, hey, if you want these things, what's the real issue? Is it price, or is there something else here? If they also say, another objection that they say is, I'm not ready. And typically that means, again, price is too high. You can go right back up. But they'll say, I'm not ready. And then you could say, well, you booked this call for a reason. And I found these decisions are typically something that you think about for a while. It's not like I wake up this morning and I go, I need a new accountant, and now I schedule a call today, right? It's, well, my accountant this year delivered my tax return late, whatever late means to me. My accountant takes 2 weeks to follow up on me. My accountant's not very proactive. I've been seeing some stuff online about some strategies that I feel like I'm not utilizing. My bookkeeping is delivered late. It's a series of events that happens over time. It's not something that just occurs overnight. And the purpose of me explaining that to you is, when somebody tells you that they're not ready, it's your job to help them realize that they've actually probably been thinking about making this change for a long time. So, well, when you book this call, you probably did it for a reason. I found these decisions are typically a long time coming. So I'm curious, why are you afraid of moving forward? Why are you afraid of moving over to us? What's preventing you from making the decision today? What's the worst thing that could happen if you made the switch? That's how you handle the I'm not ready decision. But sometimes, and that's only, by the way, if it's truly that they're not ready, because I've also found that a lot of times when people say I'm not ready, it actually means the price is too high. So just be really careful about handling objections. Make sure that you're handling the right objection that's critical in this sales process. That is all I've got today. It looks like we don't have any questions unless you guys on the back end see questions. I don't see any on my side. But you can scan here to join my newsletter. I write a newsletter every Saturday, Sunday morning, every weekend, just about running my firm and what I'm learning and what I try and what I do good at and what I don't do good at. Just try to help you avoid some mistakes that I've experienced over the years. So I'd love to have you on the newsletter. But thank you very much for being a part of this conversation, or part of this presentation. I hope that it was helpful, and I will kick it back to the Earmark team.
Today's event has ended. To earn CPE, go to earmark.app or scan the QR code on the screen. Then log in or create your free account. Search for the course by tapping on the magnifying glass icon on the home screen and then entering the name of this event. It takes a few days to make the course, so if you're attending this event live, keep an eye out for an email letting you know when the course is available. Pass the quiz to earn your CPE, then tap the button to email yourself a certificate. Stay tuned for more events from Earmark. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.